Yes, and we're live. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Before we dive into today's episode, some news from our end. Yesterday, we released an update of our plugin Melapress Role Editor. This is still a new plugin. We're experimenting with it, so yeah, I would appreciate if you give it a try and let us know your thoughts. If you have any ideas, feedback, feel free to send me an email or post on the forums. It's basically a plugin that allows you to create custom rows, but we've also just added the feature which allows you to give read and edit permissions to specific posts to users who do not even have publish permissions. So give it a try and let us know. Also, a quick reminder, next week we have an episode with Tim Nash during which we'll be talking about passkeys. So if you're interested about passkeys, authentication and authentication security, make sure you join us on Thursday at 4 p.m. Central European Time or 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That's about it for now. Today with me I have Topher. He's a core contributor, has plugins on the repository, also founded and manages the HeroPress network. We were just talking about it before we started the episode. Hello, Topher. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing all right.
Good.
Very cold
Good to
here.
hear. Yeah, because you said you're Michigan, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're covered in snow right now.
Yeah, it's let's see here. Oh, hang on. I'm doing my little calculator for the temperature because
Of course,
I'm
because you're
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's minus 10 Celsius here.
Wow, that's cold. Okay, we've had a few today. Actually, it's relatively warm for this time of the year. It's like 10 degrees Celsius here.
Yeah.
But up until last week, it was something similar, -7, -8 degrees Celsius, and we had a bit of snow as well, which is we had snow from time to time, but not common. We had quite a lot of snow for this time of the year,
Gotcha.
which was quite nice, especially for the children. Yeah, for those who don't know you, Topher, I mean, as I said, you're a core contributor. You have plugins. You founded and manage HeroPress network. For those who do not know you, can you tell us a bit more about yourself first?
Sure. I've been a web developer for 30 years. I used Gopher before that, for those who remember.
I do remember.
I've been working with WordPress for 16 years now. It's changed a lot in the last 15, 16 years. I have written plugins and themes, contributed to core. I've been to nearly 80 WordCamps, spoken at more than 30. I really enjoy the WordPress community. It's good stuff. Currently, I'm doing my own thing while I look for work. I build websites and write plugins and do audits, and I make a lot of videos on how to use software, use WordPress, things like that. Yeah, there we are.
Interesting. Yeah, in fact, that's why the first time we spoke on email lately, that's why I mentioned I know you because you're one of those people who you've been to so many WordCamps. I'm pretty sure a lot of people know you. You're familiar to a lot of people, and you are one of those for me because I've seen a presentation of yours a couple of times. I've seen you at WordCamp Europe a couple of times. We've spoken in the past. Yeah, you started as a web developer, but over time, as you said, you're doing your own thing now. You're doing more videos, but you're focused as well on more training tutorials and onboarding videos. Like, what pushed you into that direction?
Oh, that's a great question. My personal learning style, I really need someone to explain things to me either in person or in video or something like that. Every skill that I've mastered in my career, it's because somebody sat down with me and said, look, do this, do this, do this. And when things broke, they were right there to say, oh, I understand. Let me help you through that. And so I've had a real compassion for other people getting into that. When I started with WordPress, I had more than 10 years experience as a PHP MySQL developer, but I didn't have anybody to explain WordPress to me. I didn't know what the loop was. I didn't know what hooks or filters were. I didn't know any of that stuff. And so despite being a competent developer, I really struggled with WordPress. And it was a couple of years before I found some people to help me figure out things. And because of that, I want to share the love. I want to find those other people who are in the same place that I was and say, look, it's not that hard. Here's how you do it. Something I'm working on right now is I'm building a YouTube channel of WordPress videos. Most of them are aimed at people who are thrust, perhaps unwillingly, into WordPress. Think about people who work in a small business and the boss got a website and says to them, "Hey, you're maintaining the website. Get to it." What then? you know? So I'm making videos on how to make a link, how to put in an image, how to make a table, what's a header? What's an H1 or 2 or 3? What are those? Things like that. And uh, my target audience may not even know where to find me. So I'm marketing pretty heavily to developers to say, listen, you're going to have clients like this. And rather than explain the same thing to them over and over because they forget every 3 months, just send them this video. They're free videos. They're on YouTube. I even take requests. So you got a client who needs to know how to do X, let me know. I'll make a video on it. So you asked how you got started, and it really is because I wanted to give back. I wanted to support the people who are where I was.
Interesting. It does happen to everyone. To be honest, one of the reasons why I like WordCamps and local meetups is because of that. When I was starting 13, 14 years ago, it felt pretty lonely, I had friends, but it's not in the WordPress community. So by going to WordCamps, I found it was also different, when you're switching from your full-time job, having a hobby, which turns into part-time, and of course, it's a difficult phase.
Yeah.
So at WordCamps is where I met people who were like in the same position. We spoke. So I met so many people that helped me. That it's nice, of course. That's one thing which I find, by the way, quite a very nice thing that I see in the WordPress community. In general, people are very helpful compared to other communities. So you're always kind of like welcome to open arms, and people are always happy to help. However, this also brings me to the next question, because you said, like, even it happened to me as well. Like, you're stuck, you don't know much about WordPress, and you have to learn. There is information out there, but do you think that people don't find, even like the most basic stuff, like how to add an image? Is it because it's an open source project, so there's dispersed information over the internet? Is that the reason why people don't find much information about how to use WordPress or what it is?
I think part of the reason is that WordPress has been around so long that the way you do things has changed. There is a ton of random code snippets in forums on how to do something that was posted in 2007 and would do terrible things to WordPress now, but was right on at the time. How do you add an image? Well, are you using Classic Editor or Gutenberg? Are you using the media library, or are you adding a featured image? What are you doing? And so, like, somebody who wants to add a featured image, they may not even know what that is. Like, I want a picture at the top of my post. How do I do that? I need to figure out a way to communicate to them that what they want is a featured image and that their theme needs to support it and all that stuff. So I think terminology, particularly with new people, terminology can be really difficult. We're in it all the time. We know exactly what we're talking about, but like any jargon, it's going to be hard for a new person to figure out.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. It happens to me a couple of times. Still happens from time to time.
Yeah.
When I'm in a meeting or someone mentions something like, "What's that?" And then you ask what, and they show you what it is. Like, that's what it is. So yeah, there's a difference between an actual name and what the actual object is. As you said, like featured image.
Yeah.
You can say an image at the top of a blog post or a featured image.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny. It's a bit where, like, because many people say WordPress is easy to get started with, kind of thing. Yeah, there are thousands of tutorials, as you said. Like, you still cannot find like how to add a link on a post or what's the category.
Right.
What does this tell you about people's experience with WordPress?
Boy, that's really hard to quantify because everybody's different. One person's going to walk into WordPress and find it a breath of fresh air and it's great. Somebody else may not ever figure it out. And I've met those people. I built a site once for a very famous singer, and he had many sites in the past. And he said, I want a website. What are you going to build it in? I said, WordPress. He's like, I don't like WordPress. I said, how do you know? He said, I've used it twice on 2 different websites. Never got into it. Well, that's just the way some people are, you know? It's not for everyone. So I don't know that you can say it's easy or it's not easy, because it's going to be easy for one person and not for another.
I see. And where do you see like people usually getting stuck once you must have the basic. You got a website with a new web host. You configured. Yeah, you are the basic.
Yeah.
But then, which are the most common problems people get stuck with?
Being overwhelmed with the options. Do I make a post or do I make a page? What is a post? What is a page? How do I put stuff on my website? How do I deal with a menu? I think it really is the overwhelmedness. And this is where, like, if they're going into it on their own, like somebody just signs up for a blog on .com. I mean, they got to figure it out. But say you're a small business, you hire someone to build a website. It's that person's job to help you get a bird's eye view of the chaos. You know, here are your pages. This is where you edit them. I think another very common place is people don't know where to ask questions. If you have a problem with Microsoft Office, you call Microsoft. If you have a problem with WordPress, you don't call WordPress. You know, there isn't a WordPress company. And so, I mean, there are a zillion companies that want to be that single point of contact, to be the main support for WordPress. But there are so many of them that it's confusing. Which one do you use? And why do I have to pay for it? You know? So knowing where to ask a question is a big deal. And I think this is some place where meetups could really shine again. And because of COVID, during COVID, after, meetups in America, at least, shrank a lot. The number of them and the number of people that go to the ones that exist. And so you can't just say, oh, go to meetup.com, find your city, find your people, and ask them, because there are far fewer of them. And then, that's something that the community could work on, is to try to be more present. It is a way of contributing to WordPress, to simply be present, to answer questions. So your original question was, where do people get stuck the most? I think it is getting lost. They don't know what to do, and they don't know who to ask.
It's good. You mentioned a few things that I'd like to comment. First of all, meetups. I agree 100%. Even here in Europe, at least the countries I've lived in, yes, meetups shrunk. There are less people. In fact, I remember when I used to live in Scotland, I used to go to the Edinburgh meetup. It was a monthly meetup. It was a very active meetup.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't just used to have people from agencies who are working with WordPress. We used to have the occasional plumber or electrician, because someone got on a website and he used to come and listen, I just got this website. What's, as you're saying, like, what is a post? What's a category?
Yep.
So meetups are really great. And I remember the first time I started seeing these people, I was quite surprised, because I always thought meetup is for people who use WordPress, as in, like, people like us who build with WordPress, who use WordPress. But yeah, it was actually, I've seen plumbers, electricians, small bakeries, people come there to ask questions. So very good point. By having more meetups, it will definitely have more people. Yeah.
I have I don't want to associate WordPress with religion, and yet in many ways it is similar, in that, like, for a meetup, there's people like us who go all the time. We're the members. But one of our purposes is to reach out to the community, to the people around us, and to say, look, we have this thing. Maybe it's useful for you, and for seekers to find us. Where do they go?
It's funny you mentioned religion, because I did get quite a few comments over the years from people who are not in the WordPress ecosystem, that they think that WordPress is a sort of a cult.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a danger there because
Yeah.
a lot of people treat it that way,
Yeah.
both in favor and against. Some people are like, yeah, it's great. You should join this cult.
Exactly. Yeah. It's good. And it's funny also because you mentioned it's true. Sometimes, in fact, I just realized myself. Sometimes you are so deep into it. I had my business. I'm so much involved in WordPress that some obvious things don't come to mind. I didn't even realize that. Okay, what is the difference between a post and the page? For me, it's obvious because I've been using WordPress. But it's a
Right.
good point. Like you just got a website from a post. Let's say you're the average shop owner, small business, mom and pop shop.
Yeah.
From where to start? There's no sort of onboarding or wizard. So it's good point that you're mentioning because we make it like, oh, it's easy to use, pre-install 5 minutes and you're done. However, it seems like we are assuming that people know what's a plugin, that you can extend the functionality, that you can create categories, tags, what are they used for?
Yeah.
We expect that people know all about these things. So in fact, you said like people getting lost for information, but once they have the information, like, do you think, as you said, like it's a bit overwhelming even when it comes, for example, to plugins? It sometimes happens to myself as well. We're looking for something specific, and there are 30, 40 different plugins to that do that specific thing. So you have to actually do a bit of research and like, okay, which is the best reviews, which one suits our needs, because could that also be an issue because there's so much dispersed information, but there's also a lot of information.
Sure.
So it can...
I mean, take any two SEO plugins and they're both going to say, oh, of course, we're the best. That's difficult even for somebody who's in WordPress, who's a native, experienced person. I can't even imagine what it must be like for somebody who just got a blog on .com and like, what's SEO? And type that in. Which SEO plugin should I use? And there's 800,000 results.
Yes,
that's one of the things I'm trying to do with my YouTube channel. I have a video on how to pick a good plugin.
Nice, that's good.
Because it's crazy.
It is. Do you think as WordPress grows, both WordPress in terms of functionality as a platform, but also in terms of community, plugins, softwares around it, services around it, do you think it is getting harder to learn nowadays than it was years ago?
I'm sorry, say it again. What's getting harder?
Because WordPress is growing, the community is growing, we have more plugins, we have more services. Even WordPress per se, the core functionality is growing, it's becoming more features added to it. So do you think WordPress is harder to learn? If you are new to WordPress, is it harder to get going with WordPress today, and was it easier 10 years ago? Or
boy, I think it's harder to tinker with. I know a lot of people who became WordPress developers because they were photographers or something, got a theme, wanted to change it, and Googled and found a snippet to change the colors of something, and then it just goes on and on and on. It's harder to do that now. Harder to you don't tinker with themes, I think it's harder to get into it that way. As to whether or not it's harder to use, I would say it's similar. In a lot of ways, classic mode in WordPress was simpler. It looked like Word. Everybody knows how to use Word. And so you just type. With Gutenberg, you have to grasp the concept of blocks and things like that. And it asks people to do layout, where the Tiny MCE didn't really. I mean, you could move an image to the left or the right, but that was kind of it. The Gutenberg wants to be a layout editor, and it becomes a lot more like desktop publishing, which people figured out and made horrible things with. So I think it's the ease of use is the same but different from each other. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, but it also feels like it's a bit contradictory because, as you said previously, you used to like tinker with the team, try to play around with the team, but nowadays it seems the more we are trying to make it easy to use and kind of like predict how the user is going to use it. So we're shipping everything in a box, not like where you can dive deep and see what's under the hood. It seems it's the entry, the level, the entry is much higher. The expected knowledge is much higher now. Because as you said before, like you install WordPress, you have a word editor, you type in some text, a title, and slowly you might be learning. But nowadays, as you said, you have the concept of blocks. So, and it's funny because the idea of blocks came to WordPress because, of course, other providers were doing it, and it was supposed to be more user-friendly. So, but does it mean that it is user-friendly if you know how to use it, but does it mean that the onboarding got much more difficult?
Yeah. I think an issue that WordPress has to deal with is that it wants to be powerful. And powerful comes with many options and flexibilities. And there's going to be an audience who doesn't want that. I want to pull up a document. I want to type stuff and hit save and have it be on my website. I don't want to think about navigations. I don't want to think about categories or tags or custom post types or slugs or any of that stuff. And I don't know that WordPress will ever get that simple. I mean, you'd have to make it to be that way. Out of the box, I think WordPress strives to be super powerful and do everything.
It is a bit of a dilemma because even as a plugin developer, the biggest dilemma usually is when we have a new option or setting is like, should this be actually a setting or should we try to guess or imagine how the user is going to use it? So because the more options you have, of course, the more powerful, but the more you confuse the user. So you try to kind of find that balance between, should this become a setting or should this become kind of like we predict how the user is going to use it and keep it in the background. So onboarding is always a bit of a problem, right? And it seems with WordPress the same.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, in fact, it happens so often, even with me sometimes. Like I see it, WordPress and even plugins, for example, talking about onboarding in general. People often install a plugin, for example, open it once, then they get stuck and abandon it.
Right.
Like from your experience, what is usually missing at that moment?
Oh boy. I think what's missing is maturity. Every plugin is going to have that issue when it starts because you can't really imagine all of the scenarios, the ways that people are going to try to use your product wrong. You know, there are hundreds of memes, animated GIFs of people pouring their coffee on their head because they can't understand how to use a coffee cup. And I think time and experience will help you evolve your onboarding if you pay attention. I mean, if you don't pay any attention, then it's never going to get better. But if you listen to your users and somebody says, you know what, this doesn't work, it didn't work for me, then you can refine it. A big problem is indifferent users who aren't going to tell you this didn't work for me. They're going to try it, it didn't work, they move on, and you never know. So that's a little bit of magic. If you can figure out a way to get someone who struggles to communicate that to you, you're gonna win pretty big because that's gold. I mean, that information is amazing. I did a startup one time where I built a plugin to be used by high school athletic coaches, and it seemed to be going fine. And my partner came to me one day and said, man, we've got this guy in Flint, Michigan, who is a pain in the butt. Every day he emails me and says, this isn't working. That's not working. How do we get him to shut up? And I was like, what? Don't get him to shut up. Get him a gift card and thank him very much for being our free quality assurance guy. You know, negative feedback is gold. It's amazing. And if you can get people who are unhappy with your product to tell you about it, it's magical.
It's gold. No, it's gold. In fact, that's one of our every developer struggle. In fact, sometimes I do receive an email like, sorry about this email, it's negative, and I always tell them like, I don't want to hear compliments. If you have compliments, put them as ratings. That's fine. I'm
Sure.
happy for that. But the more complaints we get, the better, because that's the only way you can shape your product, quite frankly. By the way, in the meantime,
Yeah.
we got a compliment from Mackenzie. Love your content, Topher, from
I
one
see
visual
that.
learner to another. Nice. So yeah. So what's you need to listen to the users, but what can you make? How can you make users? Because to me, it's also frustrating. As I said, I like it when users get back to me and say, "Oh, I don't like your plugin." That's fine because you open the channel so we can talk.
Sure.
The
Yeah.
worst is when they install the plugin and they leave it there or they remove it, but you never get to hear from them. And
Right.
usually, my products, from what I've seen, especially in the onboarding, they point people to documentation. Now,
Yeah.
that doesn't always solve the problem at this stage. What can like plugin vendors or even WordPress core for those matters? How can we encourage people to give us more feedback or to improve the onboarding?
Yeah. It's difficult because often you, like I said, you may not even know that they tried. And so you have to incentivize them somehow. So you think about what incentives can you offer? You could put something in the admin panel of your plugin to say, hey, if you're having trouble, use this coupon for 6 months of free support or something. People like free stuff, even if it's a
Yes.
free plugin, you know? And so, I mean, you'll get people who abuse it, but you'll also get some of that gold. And that's the way gold mining works, you know?
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
throw away the rocks and you keep the gold. That's just one example. But in the end, you need to incentivize them because you're not going to know who they are or when they're trying it or where they're trying it or anything. You're not going to know anything about their experience until they reach out first. So then why would they? Well, because you're going to give them something. And I mean, that could be a variety of things. That could be support. That could be, I don't know, fame. Put them on your podcast. Who knows, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So do you think like poor onboarding also leads up to, support load, user frustration, or even like
Yeah.
mistakes?
Say it again.
Do you think poor onboarding eventually show up as increased support load and user frustrations and mistakes from users? When there's pure onboarding, where there's like, yeah, you just put them in a plugin, there is no wizard, nothing. Like sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. You definitely should have some kind of onboarding, particularly with a more complex issue. I think Yoast does a good job with this. When you
Yes.
install it, it says, all right, tell me about your website. And then I'm going to take this information. I'm going to do this with it. That's really great. But then also related to maturity, because you won't have time to do this all up front at the beginning, you should offer different methods of onboarding. I mean, Yoast needs to collect data for your website to use it, but people learn in different ways. So start with documentation, like written documentation, but then also move on to video, and then move on to, well, I said video, but I want to separate that out some. I make videos that are 5 to 10 minutes long, but that might be 9.5 minutes longer than somebody wants to sit there. So break it up into shorts that are very topical, very narrow focus. I did a short one time on how to make an HTML table, and it was, I don't know, 25 seconds, and it got great traffic because people don't want to watch a 10-minute video on how to do this thing. Somebody like me, like when I started in WordPress, I knew what a table was already. I just need to know how to do it the WordPress way. And so what I'm saying is diversify your onboarding. Make a wizard. Do written documentation. Make videos. Do anything else you can. I mean, depending on what you're doing, maybe you release a bunch of Canva templates or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And on day one, maybe you don't have all that done because perfect is the enemy of done. But
Yeah, exactly.
as time moves on, you add more, you add more, you add more. And after a while, people start to notice, hey, that's quite a body of work. And oh, look, I like to learn that way, but not this one. And so I can do that now.
Nice. You mentioned, you said start with documentation, move to videos. I mean,
Yeah.
videos, of course, as a medium, is becoming quite popular, more and more
Yeah.
popular every day. How do you find the right balance? Because some things, like it happens with us as well. You can only document so far, and then the video may be too long. Like, is there like a perfect solution? As like, it's best, like, maybe as you said, okay, you said use shorter videos, but it's not always possible to explain a problem in a short video. The same with documentation. Sometimes you have to write, So I think
Right.
it also depends on the user expectations. Could it be that also users are not exactly aware of what they're installing? Because, for example, some tasks are very easy to do in WordPress, but some tasks, of course, requires certain knowledge and certain time.
Right.
So how do you find that right balance? Because indeed,
Yeah.
people get annoyed. 10 minutes videos nowadays are very long.
Yep. My personal favorite method of doing any of that stuff is to make many small pieces of information that are cohesive and can be, if taken together, make a larger body of work. For example, I don't have an hour-long video on how to use the WordPress admin. But when I'm done making all my 5-minute videos on how to use every piece of it, you can go to the playlist and start at the beginning and watch for an hour and see how to use the WordPress admin, And I think written documentation works just as well. It's the very same idea. You do this one thing, you do this one thing, and then you read all of that together in a row in chapter format with good documentation, like organization, not documentation, well notated or whatever. Then you get your goal. And once you have that, you can make, I don't know, purpose specific documents and things like that. So, for example, I want to make a portfolio site. Well, I take my video on how to upload pictures, and I take my video on how to make a block or make a block pattern, and blah blah blah, and I can build this tutorial out of 6 videos that I've already made, just organized in the right order. I might need to make 1 or 2 at the beginning and the end, and maybe a couple interstitials, but I've got half the content there. I have one on how to use custom post types, like use them, not make them. What is it? And mine talks about staff, but right in there I say, this could be countries, this could be offices, this could be anything. And so I combine that with a couple other videos. So circling back, all that to say, I think your best bet is to make many, many small pieces of information on how to do very specific tasks, and then stitch them together to make any kind of thread that you want.
So it's also fair to say, I think, that it's important, of course, as you said, to document things, to create videos and stuff. But
Yeah,
one should also plan ahead, right? Not just start recording, as in, like, as you said, because if you want to give a big picture, but with very small videos, you need to plan ahead which video goes
right.
where, which documentation.
Yes. Yep. Have a goal in mind when you start. Don't just randomly make videos or write docs.
Yeah, and I maybe it's a good idea as well that the development team should also work with the documentation, marketing, whichever teams.
Yeah.
Together, because I've seen, for example, some plugins do a very good job at referring to documentation or videos in the plugin interface, right?
Okay.
Yep. Like, for example, when you hover over, you see, like, okay, this is how you can do it. Click here, and you see a short or not.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's very helpful for users, and maybe one day we'll see that in WordPress core.
Yeah. That's another idea that I have for my own business, I guess you could call it. I want to make a plugin for WordPress that just links to the videos that I make contextually.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So basically, someone installs WordPress, is new to WordPress, they install your plugin, and wherever they click, for example, you go to post, they get some sort of like pop-up
Right.
or whatever.
Yep.
Like, this is a post, click here, and you watch a short about.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So mainly, it seems like, because there is a lot of information out there. So the biggest problem, as you said, it's not that there isn't information. It's more like where to find it and make it easily accessible. No.
And how to validate it? How do you know it's good information? You know.
Yeah. Make sure. Yeah. Indeed. From a maintenance point of view, like, because of course, as soon as you have a wide variety of videos and documents, like, what do maintenance teams often underestimate about, like, relying on these videos, keeping them up to date, etc. Because sometimes it can get a lot and you need a lot of resources. So maybe, because I've seen it myself as well, even for us, sometimes to keep some videos up to date, it takes a lot of energy. Maybe some teams underestimate it. So maybe they create some videos and then they start with a project and then it fails. And that's why sometimes you see outdated documents or things that are no longer kept up to date.
Yeah, that is difficult, particularly if your target moves more than others. For example, I used to make videos for ostraining.com, and they paid me to do a whole series on Jetpack. It was like 25 or 30 videos, every feature. And then they paid me again to do it 9 months later because it was completely different. And then 9 months later, they said, you know what? We're just not going to do this anymore.
In fact, what's the approach? Because software in general, even WordPress itself, it changes quite rapidly nowadays. What's the secret to, like, to keep the documentation up to date, the right balance? What's like, should you delete the older videos and create new ones, or what's the best? Solution?
Yeah, that's a tough question. YouTube does not let you update a video. You can't replace it. So you can't have a video with 5,000 views that's now out of date and just put up the better one. So then you don't want to delete that because, it gets great search traffic. You can replace the thumbnail. And so you could put in a thumbnail that says, this one's out of date, go to that one over there, and put stuff in the comments and things like that and leave that one up. Alternatively, you can just bite the bullet and delete it and upload a new one, maybe with the same title, so that because it works, things like that. But if you go down the road of writing docs or making videos, somebody has to stay on top of it. And at some point in your scale, that should be a full-time person. I worked for Easy Digital Downloads for a while writing their docs because Pippin was tired of it. Obviously, at the beginning, you're a solo entrepreneur. You're not going to be able to pay somebody right out the door. But if you don't, if someone doesn't pay attention, whether that be you or someone you hire, then at some point it's going to hurt you. It's going to be negative for you. People are going to find documentation that's old and try it, and it's not going to work, and say, "Oh, your plugin doesn't work because these docs didn't work." And you could say, "Oh, didn't you look? That video is 9 years old. Why did you use it?" Well, no, they don't look. It's still up there. It must be right, So it is an arduous task. And the more content you make, the harder it gets. Once you have 3 pieces of documentation up, that's hard. That's easy. What about when you have 500 or 1,000 or 5,000? What do you do when you've got 400 videos on your YouTube channel? How often do you go back and watch them and say, "Oh, I forgot that's different now. I need to remove this video." It gets to be more and more work the more you do it.
So the more the product grows, even in terms of functionality, the more documentation you're going to have, the more videos you're going to have, and the more you need to stay on top of the game. And
Yeah.
it's right. In fact, I know actually people whose job is, especially as the product gets a bit complex, is it's not write the knowledge base it's actually planning the content, like the way the content should be structured. So first they analyze your plugin or software, whatever it is, and then suggest or study the best way how it should be, how the content should be, organized. Because not just about writing, how to do this, how to do this. You have to structure things, as you said, especially if you have a complex task and a lot of small snippets and articles. Then you have to put them together to make sense for the user to follow.
Yeah, and whoever manages that stuff has to really know your content. Like if you get to the point where you have, I don't know, 300 videos on YouTube and 200 pages of documentation, and you think that's overwhelming, I'm going to hire someone.
Mhm.
They have to wrap their head around 300 videos and 200 pages of documentation and your product.
Your product, exactly.
And be able to look at them and say, oh, that's not right anymore. That's a lot of work. That's a serious job.
Yeah. We cannot not mention, of course, AI. I mean, now you can easily generate tutorials and stuff. Like, do you think that does AI genuinely help people learning about WordPress?
Boy, does it help with learning with WordPress? Maybe. Most of my experience with AI is using it to create things, plugins. And it's usually 80% right on the first try, and it takes 40 or 50 tries, maybe a couple of days, which isn't really faster than just writing it myself.
True.
Because of that, I'm wary about what it will say to me. If I say, how do I do this in WordPress? And it tells me, is it going to work? Well, given my experience, probably not. It might start them down the road, but then how's that different from a regular Google search, you know? I don't think AI is there yet as far as being safe. Like, boy, it returns answers and they look right. And maybe they are. Maybe they're not. And do you want to risk your business on maybe they're not? You know? That said, I've been doing some research into AEO, agentic engine optimization, which is writing your content, creating your content to be easily read by AI so that your chances of an AI getting the answer correct go up. And so if you come into this assuming your users are going to use AI to ask questions, then you can write your documentation in such a way that it gives the right answers to the AI, and then they give it in the end to the person. Again, that's a lot of work. That's, you have to understand what's going on. Maybe you have to rewrite all your docs to fit. It's a big task.
So does it worry you that AI-generated WordPress advice might mislead non-technical users and beginners?
Say it again at the beginning.
Does it worry you that AI-generated WordPress advice misleads non-technical users and new WordPress users?
Yes and no. It's not any more worrying than somebody finding a post from 2007 on how to hack core to accomplish a goal. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
Bad advice is out there there's more bad advice that's not in AI. So
and AI feeds from that advice. So
it does, yeah. So I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm worried. I don't trust it myself.
Nice. If you had, you mentioned like incentivize, going back to onboarding, you mentioned incentivizing your plugin users. Is there another onboarding improvement like WordPress plugins should prioritize, you think? In general, like when you look at all the plugins that you use, for example, like what stands out? Say, oh, they can do this to make it better, to help users learn and better use their plugin.
Yeah. Let me give you a specific example of things that that I have found frustrating. That, I mean, it very much answers your question. What can they do? you install a plugin, and there's no apparent user interface for it. So, like, some just don't have one, and that's fine. But with some, you need to put in an API key or something, and they didn't make a new menu item under settings. Where is it? Is it under tools? Is it on the main nav? Is it wedged into the media library nav? I don't know. I have to hunt for it. One small mitigating solution has been to put a settings link on the plugins page on your plugin listing. And you click it and you go, oh, there it is. They put it under appearance for some reason. You know? There I've used some that don't put a link anywhere, and I had to Google to figure out how to use it. Any way that you can avoid that problem is great. There are plugins that use onboarding splash pages like Yoast. On the one hand, I don't really like those. It's not the WordPress UI. I want to install it, go to settings, click the thing, and do that. On the other hand, it's really hard for people to miss your settings page if you just throw it right up at them as soon as they install. And maybe that's a solution. Rather than do a custom splash page for onboarding or forcing them to hunt for it, maybe you simply redirect them to your new settings page. That stays within the WordPress UI. And then we circle around again and say, well, that's not really onboarding. It's just saying, here's a settings page, do your thing, I think plugin interfaces could probably do a lot better job with contextual documentation. Don't know what this thing is? Click here and read about it. Don't know what that thing is? Click here and read about it. I don't hate like sidebars full of information about how to use this thing. It can look a little weird if not done well, but if it says, this item does this item does this, then great. That's a lot more toward onboarding.
Yeah, I see, or at least you hover over a question mark icon, for example, next to the setting.
Yeah.
And it tells you what it is, or redirects you. You can click and you can read more about it on the.
Or goes to a video that Topher made.
Yeah. Wizard, of course, yeah, wizards are also good. The problem with wizards, I've seen it myself. We do have wizards in our plugins.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, many people don't have the patience to go to wizard. So they just install the plugin, click cancel, then they send a support email. Like, and you start talking to them like, it wasn't doing. I didn't know. I just clicked cancel. So it's difficult to find that right balance of how to. Yeah, users should be able to, of course, wants to learn more about the plugin. But nowadays, everyone's in a rush, so just click cancel, and they try to start using the plugin right away.
Right.
And enough a bit about onboarding and stuff. Let's go a bit about your HeroPress network. You've also been running HeroPress for many years. For people who are not familiar with it, what is exactly HeroPress, and why does it exist?
Sure. HeroPress is a collection of essays from people around the world who write about how they leveraged WordPress to make their lives better. When it started, I specifically wanted to hear from people. At the time, I used this word, and it almost makes me cringe now. People on the fringes of WordPress. At the time, most WordPress contributors, builders, were in Europe or the US or Australia. And of course there were people everywhere, but the majority were white European-ish, and I wanted to give voice to people who weren't that. People who live 2 hours by train from a small city in India, people who, for whatever reason, just live far away from other WordPressers. They can't get to a meetup. They can't get to a WordCamp reasonably expense. No, what's the right word? Economically. I know people that have spent an annual salary to get to WordCamp, and that's frightening. Like, I couldn't do that. And I wanted to give voice to those people, just to hear their story, acknowledge their contribution, what they're doing, why they're doing it, things like that. And so in the beginning, I started reaching out to people, and it was incredibly inspiring for me to talk to people, to hear their story. I've heard many stories behind the stories, things that don't get published, which is meaningful. People confide in me things that they wouldn't necessarily with other people. I've tried very hard for diversity in as many intersections as possible. So right now I'm at about 50-50 men and women. I try for as many cultures as I can get, as many languages as I can get. I think we have 30 languages on HeroPress.com now. Age, physical ability. I try to spread it out, to be deliberate about diversity, to not just hope someone shows up from whatever place or intersection that I'm looking for, but to go hunting and to find people. I had a man in London one time say to me, would you ask me to write because I'm black? And without thinking, I said yes, because representation matters to me, and I want more non-white people to write. But people in his situation so often get asked to do something only because, in his case, because of his skin color. And so there's a fine line between saying, yes, I'm asking you to write because you're black, but it's not because you're black. It's because you're a black person in this industry, in that country, speaking that language. And I want you to demonstrate to other people in that situation, this can be done. I did this. You can do this. So the HeroPress project has taught me a ton about multicultural communication, sensitivity, understanding, weird specific cultural things that I'd never existed, or I never thought might exist. It's made me a much more worldly person.
So
Did that answer your question?
yes, no, look, definitely. So it's basically hitting two birds with one stone, because it gives a voice to those people, but
Yeah.
it also inspires people. Because I mean,
It does.
if there's one thing people like, it's like if that person has done it with those in those situations, why
Yep.
shouldn't be able to do it? So it does encourage people, right?
Yeah. The spark that started it was I was talking with a guy in Kolkata, and he said to me, he was part of a small agency, and he said, we're really struggling. How do we get more contracts from America? And I said, I don't know. I'm not a businessman. I'm not an Indian. I don't know. But I wanted to help him. And so I started asking around, and somebody said, the guys that organized WordCamp Mumbai all run Indian WordPress agencies, and they're all doing fine. Ask them. And I connected them. I didn't ask them. I didn't say, tell me and I will tell him. I said, here's a guy. Go help him. And they did. And it was great. And I thought, wow, what if I could connect more people like that? What if I could find somebody in Nigeria who needs to start a WordPress company and help them start that? And I don't want to tell them, I'm not Nigerian. I don't know the country, the money, the culture. I don't know any of that. But what if I could find somebody who did and connect them? And so HeroQuest was going to be like TED with videos. I was going to travel the world and sit with somebody and make an hour-long video of them talking to their peers. And we didn't get the funding for that. And in the end, I think it would have been the wrong way to go. I don't think it would have had nearly the impact that it's had now. But the goal stayed the same. Like every single person who writes one, I say to them, you're writing to your peers, and you get to decide who that is. It could be people from your country, your language, your age, your parental status. You get to pick. And I've been surprised by what some people pick. Like, I have several people who are blind, and none of them wrote to other blind people and said, look, this is an industry you can get into as a blind person. They wrote to people from their hometown or their age or whatever. And so it's very much the people get to pick their peers. Because by the same token, like I said, I don't know Nigeria. I don't know what Nigerians need. Maybe I'm making this up. Maybe business is a solved solution. Maybe they all know that. Maybe they just need to know how to install WordPress, you know? So I very, very much don't want to be the great white savior with the right ideas on how to get things done. I very much want to be a connector of people who know how to get things done with people who need that information.
So it acts more like a proxy, basically. Like
a
connector to.
Yeah, it's a platform. I'm giving a platform to people to say things that they want to say.
Nice. Well, how old is it now, HeroPress?
Just over 10 years, 11 years, just over 11 years.
I see. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said it has 30 plus languages. So is it, but if I say it's all in English, no, or everyone who writes an essay writes in their language?
Not everyone, no. For years, I did only English. Okay. Because I had people tell me, everybody I'm writing to speaks English. Particularly in India. I thought, wow, there's so many languages. How do I reach them all? And many people said to me, oh no, everybody in India speaks English. Then I went to a WordCamp in India, and one of the speakers said something like 70% of Indians don't speak English. And I thought, what? What am I doing here? And so I've struggled with how to do it. Right now, I have both languages on one page. I don't have like a translated website. And I've been told that's bad for my SEO. But on the other hand, it's super simple. I don't have a complex system. They're just posted right on there. I'm pulling up. Let's see, essays, languages. How many languages do I have here? 30 exactly.
Nice. The reality is as well that if you work in this industry, not just WordPress, IT in general, most documentation, most mainstream information is transmitted and available in English. So it's kind of expected.
Yeah. I have 292 essays at the moment.
Wow.
Something I learned that surprised me is the joy that someone feels when they find an essay in their own language, even if they speak wonderful English. The thoughtfulness on my part to put it in their own language appeals to them. And something else that I learned is that people are better able to express what they're trying to say in their own language, even if they have great English. There are nuances to their own language that they can't get in English just because they're different, And so I've had many people come up to me and say in perfect English, thank you so much for posting it in LanguageX, because that was my first language and it just felt so nice to read it in my own language, And so, boy, I don't know. I don't remember the first one I did that was not in English.
It makes a difference because I'm studying a language as well, and yeah, when you study a language, you start understanding, because language is not just the language per se, but you also start understanding why people do certain things in a certain way.
Yes.
So even if there are some words and some phrases where even if you don't translate them perfectly, they unless someone is local, they will never understand exactly what you meant exactly and how you meant it.
Right.
That's why it's very important to use that language.
I talked to somebody from Zimbabwe who was very confused by pronouns. He thought it was ridiculous that people had pronouns. And we had a conversation. And in his first language, there are no pronouns. They don't exist. People don't have pronouns. And so the concept was very foreign to him. He's like, what? I don't understand. And he came around, like, once it was explained, he's like, oh, okay, I understand. Yeah, that's fine. It's not like he was antagonistic to people choosing their own pronouns or anything. He just couldn't wrap his head around the idea that pronouns exist. And I mean, that's the kind of subtle thing that I learned doing something out in the world.
Nice. So actually it has three purposes. It gives a voice to these people. It inspires people, but also teaches you a lot of things. Not just you. I think anyone who visits the website can learn quite a lot. Not just inspires, but you can learn about other people's adventures, lives, and why they did it, how it works. And shows you, by the way, at the end of the day, I always say the power of WordPress as a community. It's quite
right.
It's quite.
Yeah, it definitely helps showcase that WordPress is not a white male place,
And it's not just a web application; it's a big worldwide community.
Yeah. A particular page on HeroPress.com that I'm proud of is the contributor map. If you go there and click on map at the top, there's a pin for every essay. And it is packed.
Yes.
But it also showcases holes. Like, just looking at it right now, I can see I have no one from Mongolia or Kazakhstan or Algeria or Libya or Chad. And I don't even have somebody from Alaska.
Or we discussed it before, or Malta.
But soon. So although, here's a question for you. I always ask people, where do you want to say you're from? Because where you're from changes through your life. This is where you were born, where you live, what? So what would you pick, you personally, right now? Where are you from?
Well, on paper, I have a Maltese passport, so I have Maltese citizenship. My mother is Maltese.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm 44 and I left Malta when I was 23. So, and I lived in a few different countries. I lived in Cyprus. I lived in not a month or two, and I lived a few years. I lived in Cyprus, I lived in Scotland, and now I've been living 7 years in the Netherlands. So, in fact, when I travel back to Malta and I speak to my friends, my childhood friends, it's such a big difference. So, like, I can still relate to some of the things, but I've changed so much. Just because of traveling and stuff, I grew so much. I met so many people that even the things that we cook at home with my children, there's a mix of everything. There's not like, because typically in Malta we cook this and this. But we've picked things from when we're living in Cyprus. We've picked things from when we're living in Scotland. The same with I wouldn't say traditions, but some things the way people in Cyprus do them. Some things the way the people in Malta do it. So on paper I am Maltese, but but even the way I look at things nowadays, because I no longer live there and stuff. And as I said, when I go back home and I visit my friends, I'm so different than it's like they kept on going on this spot.
Right.
And I just diverged somewhere else, So
Yep.
But I can relate somehow few bits and pieces from the way I think and the things I do. Some things in Scotland, UK, some things in Cyprus, some things in Malta, and in the Netherlands. I'm kind of like of a mix. But on paper I'm Maltese. So
okay. So when you write your HeroPress essay, what city are you going to put down?
Good question.
The one you live
Is there
in
the
now?
option? Is there the option to put to choose mod?
You
Well,
could choose Malta, sure. There's not an option to choose multiple.
yeah, okay. We'll see. We'll see. I'm most probably to be Malta because that's. I mean, like, well, now I'm at a stage where it's 50-50, almost. I'm almost lived half of my life abroad. In
Right.
next year, it will be. I would have lived half of my life abroad, but still, the
Yeah.
majority of my life I've lived in Malta. So yeah, it's almost probably I'd choose Malta to start. But yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see. Just and also to have another check on the map of Melapress.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Topher.
Yeah.
Before we end this episode, did we miss something? Is there something in particular you'd like to mention, or did we miss something?
Let me tell you where people can find me online. I'm building a site called Topher.how right now. That's the website. That's the URL, Topher.how. That's where you can find the videos that I make. They're also on my YouTube channel. I run a business called MediaForge Productions where I make videos commercially for WordPress people, things like that. Of course, HeroPress. I'm on, 35 Slacks or so. So you can find me the WordPress Make Slack, post status. HeroPress has a Slack channel. If you go to heropress.com/Slack, you can sign up. You'll find me there. I'm on Blue Sky and Mastodon. I'm not on Twitter anymore. My username everywhere is Topher1Kenobi. That's with a number 1 and an E at the end. So you just search for Topher1Kenobi. You'll find me everywhere.
Thanks. And just so people know more, via Topher.how you produce videos, but you produce WordPress tutorials, plugin tutorials, releases, announcements, hosting reviews, product reviews, and stuff, right? So you have what we discussed today with the hopefully you'll help people with the onboarding and educating their users about their plugins or solution, right?
Yeah. I'm mostly paying the bills building websites. So I do that too. But the goal is to make a living doing videos for onboarding and whatnot.
Good. So if you need a video, if you need a website, go to Topher. But if you need a video, of course, Topher.how, and there are all the contact details there. And you also have a YouTube channel. I've seen it. You have, as you said, quite a few useful videos, how to add a link, how to add this, and how to add this. So check out Topher's YouTube channel. Check out Topher's website, Topher.how. Thank you very much for your time, Topher.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Definitely, I enjoyed this talk. And we'll see you next week. Thanks. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Bye-bye.